It is pretty sensible. I asked our friend Diane Green, who you've heard from for the last couple of weeks, to help me a little bit with this issue of liability. She spoke about it pretty eloquently. I guess was it 2 weeks ago or was it last week? But I have, uh, Diane has been very good at mentoring some of us, and not always directly, but just by virtue of her experience and her example. And Diane, you've done a lot of on-farm kind of events, and you talked about electrocuting a few of the folks who've come to your farm. But I wondered if you talk a little bit about when you do wine tastings on your farm, because it seems to me that alcohol, farming, and insurance don't mix, but maybe they do.
Well, well, it certainly helps me. um, when we do our wine tasting, as far as the liability aspect, technically we are just hosting this event on the farm. So the restaurant that we work with, Pandore Pastas, we're going off of their liquor license and off of their I think there's a certain amount of liability that they assume with that, but when it comes to the farm, of course, we have liability for different things going on. So, of course, when we have the wine tastings, I make sure that, I mean, I tell everyone wear reasonable shoes, which just means some people that usually wear 8-inch heels end up wearing 4-inch heels instead, which isn't, it's good for aerating my soil in the garden. It doesn't do so well when we're out there, but with the wine tasting, everybody gets their first taste of wine, and we do the garden walk first thing, and then they come back and sample more wines. But it's not like they're drinking a bunch of wine and going down in the garden. That's not really quite the way to go. But we do have a hillside that people have to go down to get into the garden. We have had people slip and fall, and fortunately nothing has ever come of that. No one's ever, we had one person sprain their ankle pretty bad, but they didn't sue us, so that was good. I mean, there's a lot of different, we really closely assess the liability for having all these people on the farm, because we do have events every summer, a multitude of events. I mean, we did our Sunday brunches and our delightfully decadent Sunday afternoon teas. We did the teas for 3 years, and we did the Sunday brunches for 3 years. And the only reason, I mean, we gave them 3 years to try, because really in any kind of research on the farm, you need to give it at least 3 years to see if it's viable or not. And none of those, while they were great, and I mean, we haven't done the Sunday brunch on the farm for 4 years now, and I still have people getting in touch with me wanting to make reservations. So it's just as far as the events, they were great events. We made sure that we covered the liability for that happening, and I think the agritourism aspect of having people to the farm is just fabulous. So as far as these categories, I'd say I kind of have a little bit of all three of,
Mm-hmm.
risk and such. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
what.
And I think, Diane, thanks for sharing that, and I think that's very true. We may find ourselves being, absolutely interested in interacting with the public and knowing the people that are eating our food, but very nervous about liability issues, and I think rightfully so. We we're a society that I think that sometimes as a people not always like to be told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. But I think we have to be really mindful of these issues, especially as we think about new enterprises that we may want to take on, not only for agritourism, but also as we think about the kinds of food that we want to put into the local food shed. If we're talking about selling meat, we're going to have a lot more liability than if we're talking about selling peppers. And so we just want you to be aware of that and to think about that. Melissa, I want to head into the third poll if we can and talk about pricing.
Okay, I'm launching the next poll. What's it worth to you? You're satisfied with wholesale commodity prices, you want more than wholesale commodity prices, or you want a premium price? Take your pick. Where are you positioned here? Okay, 35% have voted. 65% of you have voted. 88% of you have voted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. 0 of you are satisfied with wholesale commodity prices. Good. 33% of you want more than wholesale commodity, and a whopping 67 want a premium price. Right on. Okay.
Well, we are glad to hear that. That 67 and actually the 33, the 100% of you who are at least want to get more than you're going to get from wholesale pricing, you're obviously going to have to do some marketing. There's no question about that. Now, the way that I've laid these out in terms of premium pricing is I do want you to think very much about it this way. What's the least amount of people that have to be involved in moving my product from my farm to someone's table? And the fewer people are involved, the more money you're going to make. It's that simple. So where I should put big money in quotation marks here, because I don't know too many farmers who feel that they've ever been in the big money. But if you think about your farm and your ranch as a possible place to sell, there's no schlepping the food around, so that's one, savings right there. If you're doing internet sales, you're taking the middle person out of it. However, you are going to have to probably start to involve FedEx or the United States Postal Service or UPS, because you're going to have to move food around somehow. Farmers markets, you're almost always going to have to pay some kind of a fee. And even if you do a roadside stand of some type, you're always going to have to be involved. Well, I shouldn't say always, but you're probably going to have to do some advertising out on the street where you are, or other types of advertising too. So just keep those things in mind. And let's go to the next poll, Melissa. Talk about rules and regulations.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have a glitch here. Poll number 4 is missing, so you're going to have to just read through that one.
All right. So when we talk about rules and regulations, it's different than liability now. Now we're talking about things like if you decide to do on-farm slaughter versus taking your animal to a USDA inspected facility. If you're thinking about going organic or not being organic. Those are the kinds of issues that you want to think about with rules and regulations. Now, I want to say, for me at least, I've been someone who at first I think was really nervous about regulations, wanted to stay away from them as much as I could. But what I started to realize the longer I was farming was that the rules were actually in place, not always, I don't want to be such a Pollyanna and say that they were in place to ensure the safety necessarily of the food chain, but to some degree I think they are. And so as I became more comfortable as a farmer, I became much more comfortable in going wider with my reach. I moved from, very small CSA to now participating in several markets, selling through stores, selling through restaurants, selling directly to the public, and having our eggs sometimes in other people's products too. So regulations have been something that I've kind of had to come to, not always happily, but something that is a necessity. And here in the Treasure Valley, I would venture to say that we may be more regulated than other parts of the state. And I don't want to say that blanketly, but I can tell you, for instance, in Ada County versus Canyon County, which are adjacent counties, the regulations for instance, home baking are different in the two counties, and they're in two different state health districts. So one of the things, of course, we want you to keep in mind is to know where you are and to know what the rules and regulations are for you. But do keep in mind that you should think about what it is you want to market and what enterprise you want to do based on how comfortable you are with those regulations. So the other thing, Melissa, do you have this one as a poll? Or?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you
Ready?
know what? I don't actually. I want to skip it as a poll, and I'm just going to work through it. Okay, is that all right?
It's up to you.
Okay, great.